Here he is on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line because I didn't spend enough time with him over a 90-hour period. He always has me at hello like football on a stick. He is the co-host of the Move That Sticks podcast and one of the best in the business, analyzing what's going on right now. Daniel Jeremiah, how are you, DJ?
I'm doing great, Rich. I got to tell you a quick story which you'll appreciate.
Okay.
So you kind of have this long week, and then I'm home last night. I got delayed. I had to connect in Phoenix, so I was late getting out of Indy, so I got stuck in Phoenix for a while. So I didn't get home till like 5, but it's like 8 o'clock at night, and I get this weird. I'm like, you know what? I need a Q-tip, so I got to get a Q-tip to kind of clean out the ear. So it's 8 o'clock. I start walking towards our master bedroom, and I see my daughter's bedroom, who's off at college, and that bed was like something that just completely sucked me in, that I could not make it down the rest of the hallway.
Yep.
8 o'clock, I flop on top of my daughter's bed, and next thing you know, it's 5:30 in the morning.
I hear you.
Like a light.
By the way, my flight landed at 8:40 in the morning. I was in this chair by 9 a.m. doing this show. I don't know how I got through yesterday, because it's a lot, man. I know we're just sitting on our behinds, just watching guys run around cones, technically. But it is a lot. There's just a lot going on, and you're so great at it, man. You make it easy for me and everybody else, and it's just awesome. It really was a blast.
Man. It's a blast. It really is a blast, and you get to do it with you. And we would always joke on our walks back that we're trying to make each other laugh as we're going through these long days. Those are some of my favorite moments of the week.
They certainly are. Me too, man. Now that we're through it, a good 48 almost removed from the final drill, who do you think's number one overall? What's the sense as you walk out of the combine? Who's going to be the first name read by Roger Goodell in Vegas coming up? What do you think?
I think, look, we got a long ways to go, but just kind of what you hear and just kind of looking at it from the outside, I think it's pointing towards your guy Aiden Hutchinson being the first overall pick.
Really?
I just think he's too clean. He's too safe. This is a Jaguar team that, let's just say they haven't been rewarded for going outside the box in recent history. So I would think that just put this thing right in the fairway. That's Aiden Hutchinson. He's, it's insulting to say that he's kind of a high floor player, because I feel like you sell him short a little bit. That he can't be an elite player. I think he can be. So the makeup, the production, the height, weight, speed, I don't care. People look at the 40. Nobody cares about the 40 with the edge rushers. His 10 time was excellent. His 3-cone was, I think, the best of the entire group, which is all the stuff that translates to pass rush. So to me, you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. You need to get this one right. And I just think that Aiden Hutchinson is just, again, parking this thing right out in the middle of the fairway.
Well, that 3-cone drill, from what I heard, too, was similar to that of a slot receiver. That's how fast he is.
I think there were only like 2 or 3 receivers in this draft that had a better 3-cone time. So, yeah, that's pretty special.
And again, those are just 3 cones set up on the turf, and you run it around it a certain way, and you're timed, and that's how you can be measured for your explosiveness and things like that. Correct? That's just so we can make people understand.
Change of direction. Yeah, explosiveness. The 3-cone's really great for pass rushers because you see the explosiveness, you see the change of direction, and you see the ability to bend kind of when you come around that last cone. So those are pretty important characteristics of pass rushers. So, he was great there.
Well, I guess if I just got that one out of you, we could kind of mock it in a way. So if that happens, then the Lions would take who? Would that open the door for Kyle Hamilton, a safety to go to? Would they need a pass protector for whoever, if Goff or whoever they go long-term at that position? What would the Lions do it to? What would they do?
I would say offensive line would be out, Rich, just because they're in pretty good shape there, especially with Penei Sewell, who they took last year.
Right.
So I would cross the tackles off the list. You bring up Kyle Hamilton. People are split on that of how early do you take a safety.
Right.
I honestly think, and I think Kayvon Thibodeaux comes into play there as an edge rusher, and we talked about it during the broadcast. Would not shock me at all if Trayvon Walker climbed all the way up to the 2nd pick in this draft. I mean, he's just he's a unique player. I mean, you don't see guys with that height, weight, speed combination with the fluidity that he showed. And, the knock on him, people said, the kind of had average sack production and you can't take a guy all the way up there. And then all you have to do is point to Jermaine Johnson, who was playing in that same Georgia defense, had 4 sacks, And then he goes to Florida State because he wanted to actually get on the field consistently, and he leads the ACC in sacks and has 12, and then he goes to the Senior Bowl and nobody could block him. So that Georgia defense, as we've talked about all week, was just absolutely stacked and loaded. And I think that's like a defensive line coach's dream to have that combination of skills that he possesses. So I think he enters the conversation right there at number 2, especially if Hutchinson goes 1.
Daniel Jeremiah here on the Rich Eisen Show. So you just mentioned that Travon Walker could go as high as 2. He was so terrific at the Combine. And then you mentioned Kayvon Thibodeaux could go there as well. Because I discussed yesterday what the conversation was coming out of Thibodeaux's 40 and then nothing else, is that, he didn't hurt himself, but he also did not help himself. Like, there's a difference between you hurt yourself at the Combine, but you also didn't help yourself. How did everything land, again, after all the dust is now settled, with Thibodeaux not working out at the Combine, into which he arrived with so many questions about his want to, motor, desire, based on his tape and everything else? Daniel.
Yeah, I think the issue isn't that he didn't do the field workout. I think if he came into the Combine and did media and talked with teams and said, hey, here's the plan, as a bunch of guys before him and a bunch of guys after him will have said, which would be, either I'm going to go out here, I'm just going to run the 40. I've been training for the 40. I'm going to run the 40 here, and then I want to go do the field workout at Oregon. And we've heard guys say it, Rich, right? I want to try and bring as many scouts as I can to Oregon, because then they can get a chance to evaluate my teammates. It's a great opportunity for them. Or even if you didn't say that and just said, hey, this is my plan. I'm going to run the 40, and then I'm going to really hone in on the position drills at the pro day. Okay, cool, no problem. It's been done a million times. Nobody would bat an eye. But when you tell everybody in the media and with the teams that you plan on doing everything, and then you get out there and you run a 40 and then you stop and say, I'm done for the day, it was just kind of weird. And then the explanation, if his explanation would have been, hey, I just want to save everything for my pro day, okay, I get it. You made a last-second decision, no big deal. But when he said, I want to do linebacker drills, well, yeah, so does Travon Walker, and so did all these guys. And you get a chance to do all the linebacker drills. You do the D-line drills, and then you do the linebacker drills. So that the explanation was just kind of goofy. And then you kind of add into that, just kind of coming into the process, teams kind of have some concerns there. And I mentioned it, just when you watch some of the games, you see him take some plays off. Now, it's not like he's not a dog, right? Somebody that just doesn't play hard all the time. Oh, he just, there's some plays here or there, and that was just a little bit of a concern. So you come here, you do everything, you put that all to bed, and we move on. But he chose not to do that. So in a year where, we're a little bit light at that position, and probably it wouldn't be, a big deal either. But we're so stacked at that position, I think he gave up some room for those guys to leapfrog him.
And yet, though, you still think it's possible he could go 2 overall if Hutchinson goes 1 overall, and that's the way the dominoes tumble when all comes down to it?
No, I think that's entirely possible. So, I mean, this thing could all come out in the wash, and he's the second pick overall, and it was much ado about nothing. But I agree with the way you phrased it. He just kind of opened the door a little bit to give those other guys some room to jump in.
Or on the other hand, if it's apples to apples, as you and a bunch of other evaluators like to say, where it's just like, okay, we want a pass rusher, and I can go with Travon Walker of Georgia or Kayvon Thibodeaux of Oregon. This is the measurement or evaluation that could wind up with the Bulldog being selected, right? Like, that's the way it goes.
If you ask me right now,
yes.
What are we, March 8th?
Yes, sir.
If in my opinion, do I think that Walker or Thibodeaux will go first? I would tell you my opinion on March 8th is that Travon Walker will get picked ahead of Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Okay. All right. The news of the day, Daniel, I don't know if you heard it because it was just recently announced. Aaron Rodgers is staying put in Green Bay, 4 years, $200 million. Your thoughts on that subject?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I haven't seen that. So I guess what happens when you drop the kids off at school, you miss the biggest NFL news of the season here. It's kind of what we originally thought. I think after the season ended and you heard Aaron's, positivity towards everyone in the organization, both, downstairs and upstairs, that it looked like it was headed towards that. And Then I think there's that delay. So we sat there and entertained the idea of maybe this could happen. He could go somewhere else. But we were sitting up there in the booth talking about this, Rich, and I couldn't imagine him playing for anybody else. I couldn't imagine as a general manager wanting it on your resume that you traded a reigning 2-time MVP. So I think this is the most logical move for Aaron. And, man, I'm excited for the Packers fans because you look at the NFC, depending on whether our next topic of conversation, which after this I'm sure we're going to hit, if that gentleman were to stay away, the runway is pretty clear there in the NFC. I know you've got the defending Super Bowl champs in the Rams, but the Packers are right there at the top.
153 million of the 200 is guaranteed, Daniel, and this is just a remarkable moment. Certainly where we were after the night of the 2020 draft when the Packers traded up to get Jordan Love, and Rodgers correctly assumed, as everyone else assumed, that 2022 would be the absolute come heck or high water moment at which the Packers would turn to Jordan Love so they could actually see what they have in him, right? And that's why Rodgers gave them a freebie year of the 2020 season, and then really push came to shove for 2021 for him to come back, and then he came up in both of those seasons with MVP campaigns. And here we are with them now saying, I guess we'll just see Jordan Love in another spot, because that money means Love will have to go through his entire rookie contract without getting on the field, it seems, and or unless of an injury, or as we saw with Rodgers with COVID. What do you think about what happens with Jordan Love now? Do you think?
I would imagine he's somewhere else sooner than later. There's a lot of teams looking for quarterbacks right now. I don't see what the purpose would be really to bring him back. Aaron's proven to be very durable. And there's, the value, I think, with Jordan, the longer he goes without playing, is probably going to go down. So I would think this is the off season, and probably in the very, very near future that you'll see a move made there. But they're not going to get anywhere close to what they used to acquire him.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, he's going to be kind of, well, hopefully Jordan Love goes somewhere, gets opportunity to play, and ends up having a long, productive career as a starting quarterback. If not, he's going to be one of the more fascinating footnotes in NFL history that I would say he lit a fire under Aaron Rodgers and produced some of the best quarterback play we've ever seen in the history of this league.
Right. So, and his one game taking on the Chiefs, Daniel, did that affect anything, do you think, or what? Like, how can you evaluate Jordan Love at this point in time if you are thinking, you know what, let's give this kid a whirl? Like, we loved him coming out of the draft. Packers leapt in front of us to go get him, so on and so forth. Those are stories that could be told, or maybe even accurate. What do you think? What do you think?
Well, I don't think you saw enough in that brief exposure to get super excited about him. So he came into the league as maybe not great phrasing there.
That's one way. By the way, you sound like Chris Greer when asked about Tua. Can he be a top-notch or elite quarterback? I can't say he can't. You know what I mean? Like, that's what that sounded like to me from Chris Greer last week.
Yeah. No, I would say if you're asking me right now what the market would be for Jordan Love, I would say you're probably hoping you could get a third-round pick. That would be probably your hope.
Mm-hmm. So before I let you go, then what does the quarterback class look like now coming out of the combine? Do you think in the draft, Daniel?
I think teams are all over the map in terms of the order. I think there's some. I thought Desmond Ridder really helped himself. I thought that Malik Willis was what we thought. He's got a huge arm. We'll get a chance to see him move around and run. You'll see how athletic he is once he gets to his pro day, which he's off the charts there. But still a project. And I thought Kenny Pickett, to me, entered as the top guy and had a really solid workout. That's kind of who he is. And I think you could, if you miss out on these veterans, I would think Kenny Pickett would kind of be the guy that you could hope could come in and play right away. The rest of this group, I think you're probably looking more of a developmental route. So some of them, at least one of them, maybe two or three will find their way into the first round. They'll force their way in there, Rich. But I don't think we see one go in the top 10 this year. I really don't.
So then who goes and gets them, right? Like, who goes and drafts these guys? Now that we know Rodgers is staying put, Russell Wilson is the we have no interest, is what Pete Carroll said, in trading them. Washington Commanders are apparently going YOLO, knocking on everybody's door, trying to see if they can get anybody, and the Seahawks reportedly rebuffed them. So you also think Kyler Murray's going nowhere too, right? That's your opinion on that?
Correct. I think the big name veterans are staying put, except for the whole situation with Deshaun Watson. How that plays out is to be determined. But I think this is going to cause teams to. I think you might even have mentioned it on the show yesterday, Rich, that like guys like Mitchell Trubisky, they love the fact that the carousel has not started spinning, because now there's simply more seats than options available, which is going to really help his market. Yeah, right. So,
okay. So what do you think then? What's your best guess? And again, we'll have you back on and won't hold you to it. Your best guess who, when it's all said and done, they're like, you know what, we're not going to go in the free agent market for Trubisky. We're not going to go try and acquire somebody coming off of surgery like Garoppolo or Winston, through free agency. I mean, who do you think does go? Certainly the Colts are in a fascinating position. We had Frank Reich sitting there, and it didn't sound like Wentz is going back there after he left the booth with us, Daniel. So who do you think in the draft is going to maybe use a first rounder and say, this is worth the risk right now? What do you think?
Well, I think the team that's fascinating to me is the team that's picking there at the very bottom of the first round. They're also picking with the second pick in the first round. That's the Detroit Lions. Like, this feels like a draft to me where it's we can use our high seconds to try and get back up into the first, or in the Lions' case, they happen to already have the 32nd overall pick. They get their cornerstone key player with their first selection. They come back and take a flyer on a Malik Willis or a Desmond Ridder or somebody like that at the bottom, or at the top, or the bottom of the first round for them. And then some of these other teams that might be in the market, maybe they try and slide back into the back of one to get guys. So that would be something to keep an eye on. I think the Broncos picked 40, somewhere around there in the second round, Rich.
Right.
That could be a situation where, hey, you maybe try to come up with 31, get that extra year on the contract, and take a flyer on Kenny Pickett if it's him, or Sam Howell, whichever flavor you like there.
Certainly, since the whole idea that Rodgers was coming there because he was going to leave Green Bay that is now history. How about that, man? How about that?
I feel bad for Drew Lock. Can you imagine just the disappointment as a Broncos fan? I mean, you thought for a second, you gave yourself a glimmer of hope that the reigning MVP, still in his prime, was going to be your quarterback. No pressure, Drew. All
right, and then I guess one last one, just to circle back, Daniel, before I let you go. Kyler Murray, why do you think he's not going anywhere? How do you come up with that based on everything coming out of the combine and certainly going into it? Why do you think that?
Well, I think Kyler's definitely frustrated and wants a new deal. I think they're going to try and exert some leverage, and if they don't get a new deal, I anticipate they're probably going to ask to be traded. And there's absolutely no reason for the Arizona Cardinals to do that. And however frustrated you are with the way his play maybe tailed off the last 2 years, he's extremely gifted, and you have no shot of upgrading that position. So that's the case. He's got really no leverage. You can say baseball, but I think they'll call that bluff. There's no way that's going to happen. So I just don't see any situation where you would move on from a guy like that. I just don't see it happening. He's going to be their quarterback.
Well, as always, I guess you're right. Look to the gram. All of his pictures are apparently back on his Instagram. So
really?
Yes, he archived them. He didn't delete. He archived them. Or there's some unfortunate K1 intern who had to throw them all back on there. They're back.
By the way, what level of player do you have to be that people would notice that, by the way? Like, where's the cutoff line? Like, you're just kind of like a number 2 tight end for the team, and you scrub all the mentions of the team, and you go like 2 weeks. Like, man, nobody even picked up on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, every New York Jet has gotten off of Instagram, and we haven't noticed it. You know what I mean?
There you go.
So what are you saying? It's pretty. Thanks for the call, Daniel. You're the best, brother. Thanks again.
See you, buddy.
Everyone, check out the Move the Sticks podcast. Certainly coming off of the Combine. He and Bucky Brooks doing that today right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.